Ladies and gentlefish, welcome to the opera room, y'all.
Shh. And stop talking, you're ruining my concentration.
Dig in, birthday boy.
Smells like beans.
Yeah, baby!
Doesn't seem like you're having a lot of luck here.
Welcome to our new home, Babies Forever Island. A place where we can be wild and free.
You're running a fossilized business that's stalled out way below its potential, and it's killing my soul.
Okay. Ready for action! Well, enough about my fabulous life.
Masih mulus lah, King.
I can explain.
What on earth were you thinking?
I'm an influencer. That's what I do.
Run for the ass, boy.
Those were amazing visuals. Now I'll invite my co-panelists on stage and I'll let them introduce themselves. Thank you. I'll help. I have Rakesh Venugopal from Mill and Sivaraman representing Mikros animation. So Shiva and Rakesh will do a little bit of introduction about themselves and their journey so far. And before that, I'll introduce myself. I guess my name is Sesha Prasad. I'm the head of studio for Dneg. I've worn multiple hats in my about 25 years of the industry experience that I have. Started off with the international businesses with a company called Rhythm and Hues. I was there for about 10, 11 years. Then I was with DreamWorks Animation for a couple of years as a production exec. Then as a head of production for Dneg for about 5 years. Now I'm the head of studio for Dneg in India. We have multiple verticals within the organization. We have the VFX for film. We do VFX for the OTT platforms. We have Dneg Animation, which we do feature animation plus full-length feature films. We have sister organizations co-branded under the Dneg umbrella. We also have Dneg Stereo, which does stereo conversion, and we also have our sister concern, which is Redefine, and the extended umbrella of Prime Focus is also Prime Focus Technologies and things like that. So. Yeah, and we've been in the business for about 25 years, and happy to be here. Let me pass it on to Shiva. Can you use one of those?
It's always a pride moment when I represent Technicolor and Mikros. So thank you, VFX, for this opportunity. So about me, my journey with Technicolor started 20 years back. In this 2 decades, I have been mostly on the CG side of things. For a brief period, for 3 years, I was heading production at Mr. X, which is also Technicolor's VFX unit. But otherwise, it's mostly the CG side. So at Mikros, last year we just delivered 30 hours of animation content. So anything you can think of, any genre you can think of, we would have done it. Right from photorealistic Star Trek Prodigy to evergreen Mickey, we do those. What has newly added to our range of projects is features. So in the last couple of years, we have already delivered 4 features. 3 of those were done in partnership with Mikros, Paris and Montreal. You would have seen little clips of Ozzy, the voice of the forest, Paw Patrol 2, and Thelma the Unicorn, which is yet to be released. And out of everything, what is so close to my heart and going to be our crown jewel for the Bangalore team is Orion and the Dark, a feature for DreamWorks. Incidentally, it is releasing this Friday in Netflix. What's special about it is it's all done at Bangalore, almost all done at Bangalore. Right from the 3D conceptualization till the final product. Because 20 years back when I got into this industry, it was a dream. But today, it's a reality and I'm just waiting for that Friday. Thank you.
Continue with the same passion that you have, and I hope you keep reinventing yourself. Rakesh.
Yeah, thanks, Prasad. Thanks for having me on with this panel as well. Like, my story goes back 2006 when Prasad told me how to do rotos, and I got a job in Rhythm and News. I worked with them for about 8.5 years. Then I had a short stint with Dneg Singapore for about 6 months, and then I came back to India, and I've been a part of Technicolor from then, from 2015 onwards, so it's about 8.5 years now here. I started with DreamWorks dedicated units, so I was working on fully CG like features. We did Kung Fu Panda, and then we did Boss Baby, the first Boss Baby feature film which had come out. Trolls was another one. As a part of Rhythm and Hues, we had done movies like Life of Pi, all the Alvin and Chipmunks, Night at the Museums, things like that. And then post that, I joined something called TIPS, which eventually became the founding place for Mill and Mr. X, and there was another unit called Mikros as well, which used to do the VFX for Mikros, which now is merged with MPC. So now we have, now I've been a part of the Mill for about, for the last 8.5 years. We are into commercials. We do all kinds of commercials for any global brand. If you think about a commercial, we have probably done something for them, like cars, supermarkets, watches, clothes, everything. And then these days, we are into a lot of stuff for 3D billboards, so that's a new thing. We had a session some time back. Maybe if some of you attended, you'll know what it is about. And we are also doing a lot of game cinematics. So if you see these new games that are getting launched, we do the trailers for those. So that's a bit about the Mill and a bit about me. Thank you.
Obviously, the way we thought we'll put together this panel is get representation from companies who are into commercials, animation space, and the VFX space, which is all 3 different genres of the same product but being consumed and produced in different ways. And obviously, who doesn't know Mill, which is a childhood dream. Or when you say a commercial company, when even from ages, all the revolutionary commercials in the past, a lot of them have come from this legendary studio. Similarly, Mikros obviously has evolved to become what it is right now. So what we're going to focus on is I'm going to start with Rakesh. Rakesh has seen VFX for films. He's also been in the animation space that I'll reserve for Siva. And now he's doing commercials. So is it different? And obviously in commercials, I've worked in commercials in India way back about 25 years, 27 years back, which means the clients always came to us and say, I needed it yesterday types, right? In commercials, they used to come and used to be a lot of, work, but they would hardly have 2 or 3 days. The commercial space in India has still not changed. Maybe they'll give you a week now, sometimes if you're lucky. But how is it for you at Mill now? How much of, let's start with commercials. Obviously, I'll talk about a little bit of the Las Vegas Pier that you guys did, Dome, and what about that, and how, how is it different, commercials, for the international market?
Yeah, so the primary thing is we get time, for any good product, you need to have time. And thankfully, the Mill is a brand which is recognized out there and been there for like 30 plus years. So the clients and the agencies that work with us, they know that, if you need to see a good film at the end of it, like a commercial, you need to give time to the team to work on it. So there was a project that we did for Smart Energy, like Smart Energy Einstein. And we got about a year for doing the R&D and, everything. Of course, it was during the pandemic, so they were also...
That's an extreme case. 1
Yeah.
year for a commercial, somebody filming.
Yeah.
But what is the typical, timeline? Usually?
Typical timeline, I would say, is on an average, we work on about 40 commercials in a month, on at least. But that is like parallelly, there are multiple departments working and small teams working. So it could be like, 2 artists on one job in this department, 2 artists in the other department. But maybe we get about a month to a maximum of 2 months for commercials. When it comes to Super Bowl commercials, which are like, the biggest event.
Expensive ones.
Exactly. That is when we have to like push it hard, and we probably get a week sometimes, or sometimes a little less than that if it's just grading and things. Maybe 2 days, 3 days is what they get.
Typical life cycle is 1 to 2 months.
1 to 2 months.
So now with that volume of projects that are going on, you say 30 to 40 projects in a given month. The commercials probably didn't get impacted by the strike, hopefully not. So now at least that's a good stream to be in. Now when you're doing that means your front end VFX supervisors and planning and things like that, how do you work with your clients? Is there a model that your clients, you have on-set supervisors to handle that volume of work? That must be a big machinery there.
Right. So the way it works is like most of the leads on the 2D and 3D side in the home sites, which is across the globe, we have about 8 to 10 offices. So each of those leads, they are pretty much VFX soups. They are on set, and they make sure that, we get all the data and whatever we need on set itself. So planning is the key when it comes to commercial, because anything that goes off, like your broadcast the date cannot be changed, and therefore like it's critical that, we make it happen.
So you said 8 to 10 facilities. Where all do you have offices?
So we have London, New York, and Los Angeles, which are the bigger offices of us. We also have Paris, we have Shanghai, Seoul. We have little smaller offices in Chicago and Amsterdam as well.
Okay. So yeah, that's a huge stream of work that needs to be happening in India. And I'm sure there are a lot of other companies in this space, the advertising agencies themselves who are doing visual effects. They've also set up in India, and that seems to be a growing space. And I know the 2 companies, Hugard and one more company in Bangalore, who's on to into that space where doing work for them. Now, Shiva, you've been in the business of episodics for animation, which was the bread and butter for a lot of companies in India for the last 25, 30 years, because that's how India's claim to fame in the animation space and things like that happen. Now, I know that your business is kind of more evolved, and over a period of time right now, Mikros is handling the preferred vendor for DreamWorks for all their episodics, and now you say a feature, which is amazing news. Now, for episodics, I know that they do 13 or multiples of whatever that thing goes, but how is the cycle for production for episodics typically? Obviously, there's different price points, means different quality levels. So let's say, I don't know if you're allowed to talk about, if it's for a slightly more high-end episodic work, what's typically your churn? How do you plan projects, and how is that what's the timelines, and how does it go about?
Typically when we talk of episodic, it comes as 52 11 minutes or 26 22 minutes traditionally. And what we will see with the changing landscape is maybe 8-10 episodes, which is really high-end quality. But we haven't really got into that part of it. So typically, in terms of schedule, how long it runs, a year and a half or to 2 years, depending on the scope involved in the particular project. And normally 6 episodes runs in parallel in animation. So that's a typical
6
timeline.
in parallel, you say?
6 in parallel, 4 to 6 in parallel, depending on again the timeline we have. That while it looks like 1.5 years looks like a long time, that is going to be intermittent delivery timeline. 6 episodes will have, the first 6 will have a certain period, and then you need to deliver the next 6. So based on the delivery dates, we actually plan how much need to run in parallel. But you can take it as a year and a half to 2 is an average timeline to get a content of this volume done, and 4 to 6 teams working in parallel.
4 to sub-teams.
Sub-teams.
So basically to do multiple episodes parallel.
Episodes, yeah.
Okay. So does it differ from, supposing there are some people who there are different quality benchmarks. A kids section is probably at a lower benchmark compared to, you know, when I say kids, pre whatever they call it, kindergarten stuff, and then you have obviously the DreamWorks kind of quality for episodes. How different is it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Because I can talk in terms of preschool, like what you mentioned. I have the experience of doing Wali Kasam, which was like teaching for kids, and then shows that we do where the demand is for teenage to. So how does it vary? What we have seen is the underlying process, pipeline, tools that we use, the softwares that we use, while all of those remain same, where the biggest change happens is in terms of the skill set. So since we are talking to a lot of students here, the easiest thing to relate is to score 75 marks in a subject that we like is actually easy. But then if you want to push that to 95, 99 marks out of 100, then it means you need to be very thorough with the subject. So what happens with shows which are budget conscious and limited timelines is you get to move faster. For example, the animatics you get is what you will be expected to stick to. The designs that you get is what is already will be simplified. There will not be flowing clothes, that you hanging ornaments. So they are very conscious with how it is being designed in budget conscious shows. And similarly, when it comes to lighting and comp, you set look for the key shots and child shots. If it is slightly here or there, you are still okay as long as technical glitches are not there. But as you aim for more budget heavy shows, all these becomes very critical elements. Animatics will become a starting point, not what you have to. The director expects you to partner with them to evolve it. Similarly, at every level, I think the partnership becomes a critical role as the budget increases. You are expected to, there is a reason for that budget to be there. So as the shows gets complex, I think the demands from the shows also
the quality levels,
the quality bars,
and you know, obviously the development of the characters and you know, the rigs to do more acting capabilities and things like that.
Yeah, just one example I can give is, for example, what we haven't done in the past working with DreamWorks is normally we will be the R&D part of what needs to be done will be done on the DreamWorks side, and when it comes to us, there will be clear brief of what needs to be done, or only 10-20% of R&D will be there. But for a feature like Orion and the Dark, which is going to come, the brief was like it need to look a little bit more like a watercolor feel, and the toon outlines has to be there, and we were left to figure out how or what solutions are going to come. So literally we have to partner with the client. It's fun because I think India has evolved now.
Absolutely. I think this is the same story. We had to evolve with 2 different styles of feature films. For Nimona was a similar example, and we did an eclectic mix with Intergalactic when we did for Netflix. It was in a completely different world space. I'll get into a little bit of visual effects for Episodics and the OTT platform, which is a very new, I wouldn't say a new phenomenon. It started about 8 to 10 years back, where the big budget episodic projects got in, and people got hooked more during the OTT platform when the pandemic happened, and the consumption of, you know, everybody's waiting for new series to come on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu or name it, numerous Disney Hotstar, numerous other aggregators who are there. So for VFX, in general, for the episodics, they might usually one season, most of the times, if Netflix or anybody does, is about 10 episodes. Sometimes it could be, you know, it's a mini series or a limited series. They call it 6 or 8 episodes and things like that. So now a typical season has about 10. And within that, okay, they look at if it's a VFX heavy show, obviously they shoot, there are shoot schedules, they shoot according to episodes. Sometimes some episodes also have multiple directors directing multiple episodes so that they can go faster, having different production units and things like that. Then when it comes, and the same time what they do is just like the VFX for episodics was supposed to be different. initially it started saying it's a lower quality bar because final product is going to be consumed in the television. They're not going to see it on big screen and so on and so forth. But the VFX supervisors who are actually coming and doing these projects because the budgets were pretty good were all from the film side. And they were expecting film quality for even television work. Now, we deliver 4K for most of our OTT platforms, but which is coming on television. But we still deliver films in 2K, which is a 2K resolution. So it's like, you know, there is that difference where obviously where the expectation is 4K, but there are certain times the quality bars have come up with, you know, obviously GOTR and a lot of other shows are very, very budgeted, very high on the VFX side. They run parallelly, just like films. They go to multiple vendors to have parallel ability to get work done at a faster pace. Basically, maybe 1 or 2 episodes could be with one company. There are very common occurrence that both MPC and Dneg would have been working on the same product. I remember the first season of Foundation. I remember even recently one or 2 more shows where we were all working, you know, they were working, maybe Frame Store was also working on the same thing. So it gets divided across things. And a lot of times they also try to break it down in terms of, you know, this episode has only this location and this type of work, so I'll go with MPC. There is this type of, a lot of environments and a lot of other type of work, I'll go to Dneg. And they'll also hedge their bets simultaneously to make sure parallel work is happening on multiple episodes. And they try to give assets that can be consumed if one company is creating. They'd like to keep as much as possible within that company so that it makes sense for easier things. But a lot of times we also share assets between companies. Obviously there is a workflow for that and how we go about achieving it and things like that. But Episodics also is a little more, sometimes the Episodics have huge volumes of work, but at the same pretty fast pace. They have a DI post-production schedule which is pre-planned, saying that they have a fixed post-production schedule on the DI side for every episode, which just like in films they lock reels, these guys like to lock episodes with a schedule. Most of them stick to it, some of them don't. They also have move some episodes around in deliveries and things like that. Finally, the end date is an end date. Usually, they also like to keep it ready at least a month or 2 before this thing comes out. Sometimes even 3 months. Apple keeps it for almost 3 months for various other purposes and things like that. There are a lot of other aspects that they do. There is language remastering, there's subtitling, there's so many other things these guys have to, you know, build up a lot of metadata for searches. If you look at it now, you go and pause, you get actors' faces and who the actor and cast and crew, all that kind of mastering is done post the episodics. So then those are things are different when compared to films. Films are only when they're getting, coming onto the OTT platforms, do all this mastering and all the other data and other things get built in and things like that. So for VFX, if you ask, the quality bars are going up quite substantial. The expectation is the consumers or the amount of people consuming this content on the OTT platform is significantly higher. So that's what they claim. And even the Indian OTT platforms are getting more and more VFX and animation and, you know, hungry. And I guess the things have evolved. So I think I'll touch upon a little bit for other people's views. Shiva touched upon how it's for a student from 75 to 95%, how it's difficult. So one of the things that while we discussed initially, what could be the journey of a student in trying to get a foot into the door, to develop their eye as they move forward. Do you suggest, and right now, obviously, with the demand for the businesses going on, a lot of people get the option to get directly into a big studio to work on big projects immediately. But when it comes to CG animation or the full CG workflow, do you think that, you know, people to slowly go from a, you know, like you did, probably, starting from those preschool to episodic to feature anime and things like that. Was that journey, do you think that will help the journey of an artist to become stronger in their capabilities?
Yeah. So how I see this is, before the OTT era, which is not very long, 4 or 5 years back, we only had 2 types of contents. One, like you told, the traditional TV. Okay, you have a 20 to 29-inch TV, and contents were created for the children channels, and then you had the big screen. So where Pixar, DreamWorks, Disney movies were there. But what OTT has done for India is it has opened up a segment in between. So now we are starting to see movies and projects which has higher budgets, needs better quality, but right in between both the zones.
Between the theatrical
between the theater and what we are used to, or where the country has evolved. I still feel that we as a group have grown. Yeah. So I feel this is a big for a country like us, where the talent pool is growing, and there is enough experience within the group. This is tailor-made for us. But is it easy? Is the transition easy? Is a completely different question. How I see that is when you, because the skills that you need is completely different. Because when you are working on an episodic, the information will be spoon-fed in terms of all the requirements. That will be clear briefs, and you stick to the brief. You do something which is within a specified box. So that's always a better training ground. If you are getting into the industry, that's always a safe and a good training ground to get in, get started, get used to how things progress. And then as you go along, I think developing a lot more, like once you have the skill with you, once you have the experience with you, moving into a feature, you are better prepared. It's like playing Ranji Trophy and then moving into an international match and directly getting into an international match.
Nobody gets into a test match directly most of the times, right? Very rarely.
They don't.
Like, just like unless they're a prodigy like in Pakistan or in India.
True, very true, very true. Those exceptional cases are always going to be there. But it's easier for us. If you want, when we move up, can we go and write the 12th standard exam directly? There is a reason for us to slowly build the knowledge base and then move into something a little bit more complex.
Hold the thought. Okay, so I'm going to pass that microphone to Rakesh. Rakesh, you became a compositor and you became a manager on that side. Basically, you developed things like that. Pretty much I understand your journey because I was part of it, a portion of it. So you started from the fundamentals, right? You also initially said, no, I want to be a compositor. I don't want to be a roto artist, right?
Right.
And how do you feel, in hindsight, do you feel that that was the right thing for you to do?
Absolutely, Prasad. I always think that, you should start from the basics and then you should grow through the ranks, because once your fundamentals are clear, then it's very easy for you to rise further up, So if you talk on the 2D side, you talk about roto, then you talk about prep, and then you talk about comp. Like that is exactly how I feel, and I still push, people should be growing even today. Even in our own teams, that is the exact growth path that we give to our teams, because we just feel that, that when they become a compositor at the end of it, like they're all going to be better aware of, all of those little nitty-gritties that they need to be aware of.
So I'm going to ask you this question. Commercials. Typically when we use 25 years back, I also have another person who used to do commercials quite a bit, Mr. Arul. At that point of time, there were no specialists. They were all generalists. Right. It's only when the international services companies came in, we all started pigeonholing people into different areas, right?
Yeah.
So for commercials, do you prefer to have a lot more generalists, or how are you trying to break it down?
Yeah, so see, the end goal of whether it's films, episodics, CG or live action, or whether it's commercials, it is quality, because the brands that we represent, they represent quality as well. So having a specialist versus having a generalist, there are advantages to both sides. Like a specialist who's great at character modeling cannot necessarily do like look, dive or textures on those, and that is a skill that only that person might have. Therefore we don't mind specialists there. But commercials is a quick turnaround thing where, like I said earlier, like it means that in 2 days you move from one department to the other. If you have generalists, it helps reduce the planning part of side of things. Like you can have the same guy do the modeling, look dev, texturing, and then he can do the lighting as well, or he can do animation as well in between. Like if it's a product shot or something, one person can manage most of it. So we are open to both generalists as well as specialists. Like it is a choice that the students.
But do you multitask multi-skill artists, or
we do.
Okay?
Yeah, we do encourage people to multitask. That is why, like I said, like if someone goes from roto to prep to comp, like the compers are expected to do the prep. If it's a quick prep in the background, or if it's a quick roto, we don't send it back to the roto department. The same comper will do it. Like sometimes we have had compers who have come over from the film side and they've said that I never did prep. And we say that, okay, but then here everybody does it, and we try and encourage them to do it.
Yeah. So I think the concept of generalists was there in a lot of the episodics initially also, from when they did, because that was a necessity, the budgets were, right? They would expect somebody, maybe an FX artist would also do lighting, or a lighting artist would do lighting and comp together, and animation and CFX and things like that. When go back 25 years, our commercial world, one guy had to do everything, right? From building the asset to comping that. That's how commercials used to work. Okay, and even in a concept that existed quite a lot in London and in Canada also. In this space, they were all generalists who build and do assets to lighting, like you rightly said. And that's how, even I know traditionally a lot of people in London, even in Mill and other places, they were.
Yeah, I mean, if you see the Mill global side, there are people who are more generalists compared to our side. But then the thing is, India, the industry was built on the film model, as far as I can imagine. Like RNH, MPC, these were like the pioneering companies which came up. So they were all departmentalized, and therefore our artist pool is also pretty much departmentalized. But once they come on board, then it's an open thing for them. They can move around and they can learn new things.
I think we're running out of time. So what I'm going to quickly do with the topic is, yes, it is different. What we do for episodics commercials is completely different pace. So it's mind-boggling the amount of volume. These guys say that they handle 40 commercials or 30 to 40 commercials a month, churning through it, which is quite a big, I understand the life cycle is 2 to 3 months, and episodics are typically, it can run anywhere for the VFX side of things. You can start the planning, the talks can start even 1 year before the project delivers. But when after the turnaround, it's usually 6 months, anywhere between 3 to 6 months. And Shiva pretty much gave a timeline of how the episodic for the full CG stuff works. I think there are a lot more people here. I think if you want, I can take a couple of questions if anybody has it. Otherwise, like the gentleman has suggested, unless somebody else is waiting, we could play the couple of reels again. If that's what I don't think we're running out of time anyway. Let's take a couple of commercial questions, and the reels anyway we played at the beginning. Any questions? Yes, go.
Check. So we all know 3D rendering takes a lot of time. So in terms of feature films, we have a set period of time for the whole project. But in terms of commercials and episodics, it's a lot less time. So like what kind of rendering times are you looking, and how do you manage the render times and also the artist behind it? So like how does the whole process go in terms of like time management?
So obviously you bring out a pertinent question. What happens is everybody is tuned to the fact that you are to be cost conscious. When I say cost conscious, render time, machine time is also cost for us, right? They need to be building optimized assets and optimized things. As much as you wanted to get optimized, obviously the machines have gotten faster, but our processes, as our creative processes have also become a lot more evolved, and our softwares are doing a lot more computation to get that thing. Obviously we try to optimize a lot, but what happens in bigger companies is we're all clustered together as one organization. A lot of times we also leverage from our sister organizations to, if there is a render crunch, we have huge render farms a lot of the times. We try to leverage from each other a lot of times. We have 3 or 4 sister companies. I'm sure that the same with the Technicolor families. And that's usually how we do a lot of render forecasts. And we do, even when the look dev is being done and the test renders are done, we have analytics popping out to show what would be the approximate render time in a short context of these shots and things like that. Helps us to project, saying that it's getting back-ended. A lot of times I have to render 15 or 20 shots in 2 days, 3 days. We are hitting a point where it's not going to be possible. We need to warn the client, no more changes, we can't, otherwise you don't have your product. So that two-way communication is very important, and to be aware of your render forecast. To be very clear that I know that one frame is going to take me 24 hours. Can I break it down? We get into saying, can I break it down into multiple quadrants and render it separately, break it out into, slice it and dice it to try and do a lot of things that we get into to try and beat the time aspect of it. Rakesh, do you want to answer anything?
Yeah, I just want to add, what Prasad said is right. It is optimization, that is the key. But when it comes to films or episodics or commercials, there's no difference in the thing that you're rendering, right? If it's all 2K, it's going to take the same exact amount of time. But the number of iterations that we do might be less than a film. Like a film, because the director is going to look at the VFX soup, there's multiple rounds of iteration, whereas ours, it's directly to our VFX soup on the other side, and then, the agency sat in the same room in the suite. So the approval process is much faster and quicker. And like I said, it's time, they're all aware of the amount of time that we have in hand, and therefore the process gets done quicker. But the render time will be the same across the board.
I'll take this other question.
This is to all three of you all. You all guys have got a great body of work, but I wanted to know with regards to animation, IP, do we see any local IP coming out from your stable?
Local IP, yes. I think different companies will have different stories. For me as a company, I don't know that we have co-produced a lot of content. Brahmastra was a co-production from Dneg and
I wanted animation. I was particularly talking about
for example, Garfield, the movie, the trailer that's come out in the international space, we have co-produced it as a company. I pride myself in saying that we started off in a garage in Bombay. Now we deal with international content. Indian content in terms of animation, right now we are not into it, but we are into a lot of live action stuff. But there are a lot of other companies like Rajiv, who's a part of another panel, Green Gold and Chota Beam, and Maya Entertainment, who's doing a lot of Indian IP with for consumption, which is there on the OTT and things like that. For us, as Dneg as a company, we are into the live action side of things, and we co-producing feature animation, fully animated stuff, globally. I'll let you speak.
Yeah. So at Mikros, we are open for everything. There is we are generally want to explore every opportunity which is around. At least at this moment, I cannot get into the details, but that's an international film, but completely Indian, based on the Indian content. And what we are doing is, while it is not an IP, but we are actively involved in right from the design stage, like character designs to how the environment is going to look like. So we are conscious, like Legend of Hanuman is another project. We wanted to do Indian content, and it's conscious effort. MPC, our sister concern, I think the Hyena you see in Leo, they have contributed to Bedia, RRR a little bit. So some of these we are consciously making effort to get into the Indian market, but IP is a completely different ball game. We have a small unit at Mikros, which is at Paris, which explores IP content and then explores. But if you are specifically talking about Indian content, we are. I think we have a long way to go towards it. But like
it's a difficult game to play, the IP game, especially when you're evolving. So, but everybody has their own routes to it, and they'll get there. So that's where I guess we're running out of time, and I think we played the reel in the beginning. We did. We started with the reel. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Yes, I'll take one last question while they're getting the mementos on stage.
I came only to ask this question because I was in the earlier session. How is the preparation for animation and VFX? For OTT, do you have a different approach while the theatrical part? Is it different in terms of a production itself is what I want to
No, I
ask.
think in the VFX side of things, nothing changes. The planning and advanced planning and things like that. But what has actually changed the game is a lot of these OTT guys, because of the amount of content they're producing, they are people like Netflix work with the directors, partner with them to get the cost down at the very beginning. They have very good virtualization tools that they have built for virtual cinematography and things like that, with a lot of development on their own side to get the director to sit with them to do all the virtual scouting beforehand and have the actual, previs, more like a previs with virtual cinematography, with the cinematographer and the director, everything planned out. That's the only way they're able to give a higher quality of visual effects with being cost conscious. Those are things that some of the OTT platform providers are developing on their side, which is making them a lot more. Because on the film side, it was spread out, much more spread out, with a lot of studios producing it, so they couldn't centralize it. Netflix knows that they're producing content all across the globe, so they have the appetite to develop their own tools for helping faster and better, getting better budgets, bang for the buck. So, yeah.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you so much, dignitaries, for taking the time off and joining us out here, and for that absolutely phenomenal discussion. If I could request Ms. Kranti to join us on stage and do the honors and present the mementos to our speakers. Please put your hands together, everyone. Let's give it up for our speakers on stage this afternoon.